Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Oxygen for the Soul. This week's Parsha is Perashat Toldot. This Parsha reading is so deep. We could just spend a few lines on this week's Parsha and spend hours and hours trying to understand it and unpack it. The Parsha we know is the Parsha about Yitzchak, and more specifically about Yitzchak's life, which was very short. This is one Parsha where we read all about it. A little bit of the interactions between Yitzchak and Rivka, his wife, and then a little bit about the birth of these two enigmatic, I would call enigmatic characters, both Yaakov and Esav. So let's try to unpack it and see what we could walk away with. If we could walk away with a little bit of inspiration in this week's Torah reading, and I think we can. So we know that there are twins that are born, same mother, same father, right? Esav and Yaakov are born. Okay, and there's so much that is alluded to from the Parsha just from the names themselves. Yaakov comes from the word ekev, which means heel, and Esav comes from the word asui, or asa, complete. Okay, he means to do. Okay, Yaakov is the low nature, the humility necessary to grow, and Esav symbolizes the impulsive and immediate action, without considering any kind of consequences. Rashi tells us that Rivka wanted to hear ma yeh besofo, what would happen at the end, because she was very curious as to what her children were going to look like. What are her descendants? Everything that she did was very much an expression of looking at the future, trying to make sure that the future had a future. And the only way to do that is by making sure that the children you're going to have were going to be those that were raised at Tziddikim. So you have two people. You have a Yaakov and Esav. Their natures are set. And we could ask some questions about it. We know that when Yaakov walks by, when Rivka walks by a house of idol worship, the baby's kicking. We know that when Rivka walks by the house of Avodah Zarah, baby's kicking. And she's panicking, like, do I have a kid who has, who's bipolar? Who's thinking, living in a split personality. Like, who is this guy? The worst thing you could possibly have is someone who's confused. And by the way, we're seeing it today. We were in Washington on Tuesday. Some of you may have joined us, and you were there. And if I didn't see you, I'm sorry. I wish I could have. But I was just sharing a nice area with 300,000 other people. And we were there because we need to show and raise our voices that it's important for us to support Israel. Why? Because the world's confused. We've lost our moral understanding of the situation right now. One of the things that are trending right now is a letter that Osama bin Laden wrote to America. It's called a letter to America. So I decided, I want to see what the trend is about. I want to read this. This letter is unbelievable. So the irony is how these TikTok individuals are reading this and saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe we've been lied to our whole lives. Osama bin Laden was right, that the real issue that we're all dealing with right now is the Jews, and it's all about Palestine, and the Jews are occupiers, and there have been occupation for so long. Mamash, the same exact talking points of all the Sonei Yisrael, right? The Jews don't have a claim to the land, that really only Muslims live there. The Muslims drove out the Romans, which is nonsense. The Romans fell apart way before the Muslims came onto the scene. The Muslims came onto the scene around the 6th, 7th century. The Byzantines were there, not the Romans. The Muslims never fought the Romans. Very different story that's being told. But the idea to whitewash and say Jews have no claim to the land of Israel is absurd. Interviews of people in Israel today, of Arabs, who are saying, yeah, of course, even if there's peace, we still don't want to live side by side with Jews. Horrible, horrible things. And it's very painful. And for me, so much of the nechama, the solace, the comfort that I get is from seeing how, these are the issues that the Avot were dealing with 3,300 years ago, right? Nothing's changed. Maseh Avot siman al banim. So much of what the Avot went through is a sign for us. So when we read the Parshiot, we see so much of what is happening today is being so much of a reflection of what was. So what do we see with Esav? Esav calls Yaakov a thief. Et bechorti lekach. You took the birthright away from me, right? Didn't Esav realize that he sold the birthright to Yaakov, right? No, you guys are theft. You guys are stole from us, right? One of Yaakov and Esav's debates was who would inherit Olam Hazeh and Olam Haba, And they made it according to Midrash. Midrash says that Yaakov, basically Esav, gave up his Olam Hazeh, his Olam Haba, and he said, you know what, Yaakov, you take Olam Haba, you give me Olam Hazeh. And Yaakov says, great deal, let's shake on it. Okay? Now we know what ended up happening. Esav had Olam Hazeh, right? What was the motivation for Esav? Esav's motivation was as follows, just so you understand that. Not clear in the Psukim, but the Midrash adds a lot over here. Esav says, you know what? The day that Esav goes off the derech, so to speak, he goes OTD, off the derech, he is the day that Abraham dies. Abraham dies. And now Esav says, I don't understand. My grandfather was this massive tzaddik. He sacrificed his whole entire life to do everything for God, spirituality. He was a warrior. He was a philosopher. He was a businessman. He had the first franchise of Airbnbs all over the Middle East. And it was free. All you have to do is make a baracha. All you have to say is Baruch Hashem, and you got in for free. Super successful. Very, very successful venture. Okay? But he died at the end. So what does he do? On the day that he dies, he goes out and he attacks Abraham's greatest nemesis, Nimrod. And Esav kills Nimrod. In the same day that he kills Nimrod, he does Avodah Zarah. He does Shfichat Damim with killing Nimrod, and he does, Gili Arayot. Gili Arayot, Shfichat Damim, Avodah Zarah, all the three cardinal sins. On the day that Abraham dies, he walks away. He says, you know what? I do not believe in a spiritual reality. In my world is a world of Asui. A world that is tangible, a world of scientific method. I want a world that is tangible. I don't want a spiritual world. My grandfather, may him rest in peace, he made a mistake. And therefore, Esav gives up after he does this. He kills, he pillages, he has his illicit relations, and he ends up doing Avodah Zarah. He says, give me from these adashim, give me from your lentils. And Yaakov's no problem. And Esav says, I give up, I surrender Olam Hazeh. I don't want Olam Haba. You take Olam Haba. And the mistake that Esav made is that Olam Hazeh is very much a reflection of Olam Haba. What did Yaakov get? He got both. He got both Olam Hazeh and Olam Haba. Why? Because, my friends, that the whole entire physical world is very much an expression of what's happening on a spiritual plane. Everything in this world comes down from something spiritual. There's no ki'um. The physical world does not exist without spirituality. The spiritual world itself is an expression. The physical world is an expression of spirituality. The only way we get gashmiyut in its totality is if we're able to hold on to ruchniyut. So what happens? Yaakov says, you know what? I'm going to work. He's ekev. He is at the bottom of the totem pole. Esav is at the top. He has everything. He's charismatic. He's intelligent. He's handsome. He's wealthy. He's strong. He's powerful. He has a tactical mind. Every single gift you could possibly imagine, every gift that you would want for yourself, Esav has. Yaakov has got nothing. Okay? He is the weakest of the twins. You remember that movie Twins with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito? Esav is Arnold Schwarzenegger. Right? And Danny DeVito was Yaakov, right? That was their differences, okay? Now, so you think that Esav, with all of his unique talents, would have been so amazing? No, not so amazing. When you're blessed with everything, right, you don't grow. When you feel like everything is there, you don't feel the need to develop into something bigger. People that have all of those gifts, those talents, they just lean on their natural talents and they never become something more. Many times those people become very bitter. There are two destinies that are placed before each of us, just like Yaakov and Esav. And this is a choice that we each have to make. Do we want to live a life of excellence, growth, development? Do we want to live a life where you and I are choosing the kinds of people that we want to be? Or do we want to surrender to the mazalot and say, the mazalot, whatever my mazal is, that's what I'll have? Because that was the world of Yaakov and Esav. Esav, basically, he says, I want what is natural, what is owed to me. Yaakov says, I want the supernatural. It's interesting. It says that Esav is ish sadeh, and Yaakov is ish ohalim. He's a man of the tents. What's the difference between a sadeh and a tent? The ohel is in the sadeh. They're both in the same place. But an ohel, my friends, has boundaries. In order for a tent to be a tent, you have to put up walls. You have to make a separation between the physical world around you and to create the habitat that you are inhabiting in. Whereas Esav says, no, I am a man of Esav. I don't want any boundaries. I want everything. And I find this, this is a mistake that so many people make. I've been, teaching in outreach with a lot of people, a lot of Jews mostly who are not religious, and a lot of the pushback I get back is, why would I want to live a life of restrictions? Why do I want to, have a Shabbat where I can't, do what I want? I have to eat kosher. I have all these restrictions. Who wants that? And this is a mistake that people make. People often think that if I create boundaries, I am kind of like holding myself back from all kinds of delicacies and pleasures. And this is a falsity. This is a fiction, right? I've seen this. I didn't grow up observant, and I remember what the other world was like, and I could tell you that being observant, I have lost nothing, and I've gained so much in return. The boundaries that Judaism gives us is the boundaries that allows us to enjoy everything in the world of Ruchniyut and in the world of Gashmiyut. You get both of it. Why? Okay, in a world where I can do whatever I want, I become numb to it. Right? If I leave my finger in the palm of my hand long enough, I won't feel it. The body becomes numb to it. But if I am constantly changing, if I'm constantly creating the boundaries necessary, I can live a life where every moment is change. When you do the same thing over and over again, you become depressed. When you are looking for growth and development, and you're looking for new opportunities to develop yourself something more, you're happy b'simcha. And therefore, when we see the struggles, we run, I don't want the struggles. You want to live like Esav? No struggles means no growth. No pressure, no diamond. No pressure, no greatness. No excellence. God created a world where on purpose, the Am Yisrael would have to go through challenge after challenge after challenge to refine us, to become the best people we could possibly become. And we're reminded very much so by the Umat HaOlam, the nations of the world, hey, the purpose of this world is for you to develop a relationship with God. Do you want to live a life without boundaries, or do you want to live a life of holiness? The word kadosh means boundaries. That is the world that God created for us. You choose what this world looks like. A world of asui, where everything is done, complete, or do you want to be a Yaakov, a Ish Ohalim, a man of the tents who recognizes his limitations, his boundaries, the humility that he needs to grow? I don't have all the answers. I can't answer all the questions. But I know that there are things that are lacking. I know that there are things that I don't have. I know that there are things that I still need to work on. I know that if I want to live a life of meaning, I have to fight for it. That if I allow myself to surrender, so to speak, to my natural talents, I'll never live a life of happiness. It's through the grinding of life that we grow into something more. That's why Yaakov, by the way, changes his name from Yaakov to Yisrael. How do you become someone that gets the title of Yisrael? The way we inherit the title of Yisrael is by becoming individuals that become something more. By the way, you see this over and over throughout all of the Avot and the Imaot. We know all the fathers of the mothers, right? Sarah's, father was Haran, and her grandfather was Terach. Not a very good character, complicated. Rivka, okay, we know that her father, Betuel was not a good guy. We know that Rachel and Leah, Lavan, not a good guy, right? Interesting that we know that all the Imaot were barren; they couldn't have children. Why did Hashem do that? Why did God create a reality where all these women, who all they wanted to do desperately, they just wanted to have kids. They wanted to raise families. They wanted to build a future. They wanted to do great things. Why did He make it so hard for them? We know that Abraham, by the way, had it hard. Yitzchak and Yaakov didn't have a problem having children. Why? Because they were the children of tzaddikim. They were already the outgrowth of individuals, an individual, Abraham and Yitzchak, both, who lived a life of Kedusha, and therefore for them, they had different kinds of challenges, but not the physical challenge of having children. So I see some of the Mefarshim say the reason why the Imaot had to go through so much challenge as far as having the ability to have children is because they needed to break away from where they came from. They needed to make a hard stop from the world that they came from, their parents, their fathers, who were Rishaim, and they need to transform themselves into different kinds of people. It's interesting that if you look at the Pasuk, where it speaks about how Rivka and Yitzchak are praying, right, for their children. When Rivka comes to Yitzchak and says, Pasuk says, "Ve'elo toldot Yitzchak ben Abraham holeded Yitzchak." Okay, v'yi Yitzchak ben 40 shana v'lakachta et Rivka bat Betuel ha'arami mipadan Aram. He went to Syria to get a girl for him. right? So the pasuk says, "V'ya'ater Yitzchak laHashem." The word "V'ya'ater Yitzchak laHashem" translates as that Yitzchak went to pray to God, l'noach ishto, opposite his wife, ki akarahi, because she could not have children. V'ya'ater lo, and God accepted. V'taher Rivka ishto, and she became pregnant. What is this word v'ya'ater? Why is that the word? Isn't the word for tefillah v'yitpalel? This is a strange word that is used to describe this praying that went forth between the avaot. Okay, so what is the word atar? The root word of v'ya'ater. Atar is a pitchfork. Why are the tefillot of tzaddikim compared to a pitchfork? A pitchfork is what you use to gather hay. It's something that is used in the field. The Chachamim say that just as a pitchfork, turns over grain from one side to the other side, tefillot are supposed to be something that transforms, that turns over Hashem's plan of achzariyot, of cruelty, to rachmanut, to compassion. What's supposed to happen? The word tefillah maybe will help us. The word tefillah, or the word mitpalel, someone who prays. We know that the word, that there's something called a prefix and a suffix in the Hebrew language, right? The prefix, the word that comes first, the two letters, met, palel. So the word met literally means death. The word pilel means to search, right? The word mitpa'el, right, which is expression of something that happens to himself, mitbarech, right? Mitpalel means there's a pilul, a change in the person. How do you do that? You got to kill a part of yourself. A part of us has to die in our tefillah if you want to grow into something more. These people changed themselves through their tefillot. They became different kinds of, the ima'ot had to become different people. They had to become different individuals that were zochet to different things. V'yater Yitzchak laHashem l'noach ishto. He prayed for her, right? In order, so that what? Why does he pray for her? They change her. They change. They have to become different kinds of people. And through that growth, that's what this Pasha is about. What are our Toldot? What are the generations we want to leave behind? What kind of a world do we want to leave over to our children? What kind of the whole purpose of tefillah itself is for us to grow to become something more. It's so we have a closeness to God, so we can become greater individuals. You don't have that. You've lost out on the whole entire purpose of the world that you and I are living in. Right? Everything that we do in this world is an opportunity to become something bigger and better. The circumstances that we're in right now, the challenge of the world right now is ultimately going to be a challenge of our tefillot. God creates challenge for us to overcome. Yaakov, Yitzchak in this week's Pasha, he has all of the, he gets all the wells, and where does he go? To Beersheba. Why does he leave? Because Yitzchak understands that you can't live a life of perfection. The Gemara says this very clearly. If you're a person that lives life and you have zero Yisurim, you had zero challenges for 40 days, there are no challenges, there's something wrong with you. What are the challenges the Gemara lists? Right? You didn't have a hardship, something's wrong with you. Every person has to have a challenge. The Gemara lists them, by the way. The Gemara says, you know what a challenge is? A challenge is a tailor made clothing for him, and it doesn't fit him perfectly. It doesn't fit according to his taste. That's a challenge. He wanted to drink wine, and they poured him, and they poured him a cold drink instead, or vice versa. He accidentally put his clothes inside out, and he had to take them off and get dressed again. He put his hand in his pocket, take out 3 coins, and he had to take out 2 coins. The simplest things in our lives that happen to us are there to challenge us, so that we can grow. There is no scenario where there is no Yisurim. All of us have Yisurim in this world, and no one had more Yisurim than Abraham and the Imaot, Yitzchak and Yaakov. We read their lives, not simple, it wasn't perfect. They all have challenges. And the question is, how are we going to respond to our challenges? You want to leave a world of Toldot? You want to live a life of greatness? You want to live a life where you're able to make the world a better, greater place? Met palel. Are you going to kill the person that you are to evolve into something more? That's how you choose your destiny. The challenge is supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be complicated. It's supposed to be difficult. We're in a very difficult situation. The whole entire world right now looking at Jews and saying, oh, they're the problem. Anti-Semitism on the rise. It's okay to go ahead and hate Jews. The airport, we had 900 people landed from Detroit and Washington. The buses, Bedafka did not pick up those people because they were protesting Jews going to a rally. It's Majnun, craziness. If there were 900 black people on a plane and white people did not want to take them to their rally, it would have been riots in the street. You see, the world is venapachu, it's broken, it's upside down. And when we see these things right now, that we're going through right now, we have to wake up. It's an alarm for us. What do we do? Where do we go? There's only one place to go, my friends. The place is to go, you got to pray. That's it. This is a time for tefillah. This is a time for us to pray. Not just for ourselves, for our families, for our friends, for our community, for Am Yisrael. We have to become bigger as a result of the world that we're in right now. Because the world is lost. Ve'emet ne'aderet, right? That's what Yeshayahu says. That there will be a time in the Achat HaYamim where truth is lost. The only way you and I can find truth is by expressing the truths that you and I are supposed to live. The truths of our lives. Our individuals who look at the challenge and rise to the challenge become something more. And with that, I'm confident, B'ezrat Hashem, we will see the Yeshua, the Nechama for Am Yisrael. Our soldiers will return home whole. Our captives will be returned as well, inshallah, soon. And we want to live a life of greatness. But in order for you to have greatness, you got to fight for it. You got to be willing to fight really hard for it. And Hashem doesn't make it easy because He wants to give you all the reward. There is no greatness without challenge. The reward comes through challenge. Embrace it in the same way that that Yaakov did. And you will inherit a world of Yisrael, the Sar Elokel, the princes and princesses of God. The only way you get that status is by working really hard for it. Wishing you all an amazing week. Be'ezrat Hashem, we will continue the conversation next week. Shabbat Shalom Avarach, everybody.